Okay, so when you start burnishing, I usually like to start in the darker areas. And again, I'm not going to show you guys the whole thing, so I should be up here. I'm not going to show you guys the whole thing. I'm just going to give you like 5 minutes of this. I like to start in the darker areas because I know I can do heavy pressure in the darker areas and I don't really have to worry about it getting too dark. So I'm going to do this little section right here. Even though this is like my darkest area, I'm just going to do this little section right here so you guys can start seeing how to basically use your colors, where to use heavy pressure, which colors to use heavy pressure with. So if I look at this kind of shadow right here, that little part right there, I'm going to start there and I'm going to use heavier pressure because we're going back to working with our natural colors, our reds, our oranges, and our yellow. I'm going to start to use kind of heavy pressure there. You don't have to go super heavy right away, but I'm going to start to use a little bit more heavy pressure where it's going to get a little darker. It's a little darker along the edge here. But you also need to know when to kind of fade that heavy pressure out. So like here, it gets darker, but as I bring this down and I want to get more of those reds, I'm going to use lighter pressure. Because what happens if I use heavy pressure all the way up to my yellow like this, and then I put yellow on top of that, you're going to get that hard line in between those two colors, and that's not what you want. You want that kind of slow overlapping. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit, kind of lighten up my pressure as I start to get into those areas that might be a little bit more orange. Then I can bring in my orange. And now because orange is a little bit lighter, I can overlap my orange and start to use a little bit heavier pressure with the orange. But as I start to get to those areas like down here where it's going to turn more yellow, again, I'm going to lighten up on my pressure. So that's really the trick or the key to this, is figuring out, okay, where do I add the heavy pressure and where do I keep it light? So heavy pressure in your darker areas, lighter pressure in your lighter areas until you get to your light colors. So in here I've got yellow, so I can actually press pretty firmly with my yellow to kind of get that burnishing technique. Let's see, I'm going to go back to over here. Again, kind of going lighter with my red. But then if I still need to get that burnishing technique, because it's that burnishing technique, that heavy pressure that gets rid of those white little dots, I can go heavy with my orange on top of my red. And it will start to kind of get rid of those little white dot areas. So that's just the key to this, is figuring out, okay, where do I need to go heavy and where do I need to lighten up my pressure. So right here, because this is my yellow, I can start to go heavy, but that's getting really bright. So in order to kind of knock that down so it's not so bright, I could bring in a brownish color and kind of go over it. And then I want you guys to watch this too. So, oops, my Tuscan red is breaking a little bit. All right, this might be a little hard to see, but can you guys see how it looks kind of scratchy right there? Okay, watch. This is what's great about Prismacolor pencils. I'm going to use my yellow. I put a little bit of kind of like brownish red on there. I put my Tuscan red on there to kind of make it so it wasn't so bright. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow, and where it was scratchy like that, if I take this yellow and I press really firmly and I go in little circles, do you see how it blended all that together? So the other thing that burnishing does, that heavy pressure, it not only gets rid of all those little white areas, but it actually starts to blend the colored pencils together really nicely. And you can see that in the image that I'm kind of bringing around to you guys. So again, for example, if I want to go down here, we can see it's like a kind of light red, reddish orange area. I'm going to go in with my red, but I'm not going to press super firm. I'm going to press down kind of firm. But because if I press too firm with my red, it's just going to get too red. It's not going to look red-orange. So I'm going to press a little bit firm, but I'm going to leave some of that space where those little white speckles are coming up. And then because I know I want to get more of a red orange color and not really just red, then I'm going to go in with my orange and I'm going to press really firm on top of my red. And then again, it's going to get rid of kind of those little speckle areas, those white specks, and it's going to start to make that really nice and solid. Okay, so that's what you guys are doing for the rest of the period. The cast shadow, you do not have to do the cast shadow, but if you finish early and you want to try the cast shadow, that's this part right here, that dark shadow underneath, you can. But if you're going to do the cast shadow, try to, you can use black, but don't just use black. If you look at it right now, look at your picture of yours. You can see at the bottom, it's kind of like red, maybe violet. Over here, it gets kind of blue. So you can mix in some colors with your black, kind of layering, or you can just create your black. If you want to do the chromatic black, you can do that too. But the cast shadow, you do not have to do. That's kind of a little extra if you want to. I really want you guys mostly to focus on the fruit. Okay? All right, any other questions? Nope? Okay, you guys are working for the rest of